Worried about your drinking? Reserve your place on today's free Quit Drinking webinar and get a copy of my best-selling book, Alcohol Lied to Me, as a gift just for turning up. www.stopdrinkingexpert.com. Hello, how are you? This is Craig Beck, aka the Stop Drinking Expert and the author of Alcohol Lied to Me, which you can get for free right now at my website, stopdrinkingexpert.com. So if you're worried about your drinking, get on over there and grab yourself a copy. It could change your life. Now, today we're talking ADHD and alcohol. What's the connection? Is there a connection? But before we do that, let me just reply to an email here from David. Hi, Craig, this is David. I'm having a tough time quitting. I've done the course a few times. I've got a custom hypnosis track from you, which I love. I've had a few stops and starts. Never really get past day 10. I think I might benefit from a personal coaching session with you. What is the process for that? It's no problem, Dave. If you want to book a one-to-one coaching session with me, just go to my main website, craigbeck.com, and you will see coaching on the menu bar at the top, and you can book in your session. Just a little tip for you, because for some reason, a lot of people fall foul of this. When you're booking the appointment, it's a 24-hour clock. And so if you book 1, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. If you book 13, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It does say it quite clearly, but I don't know why so many people end up booking appointments at 2 o'clock in the morning, which is fine for me because it's probably like 8 a.m. for me, but in your time zone, it's 2 a.m. Anyway, if you want to book a personal session, craigbeck.com is where you go and do it. All right, let's dig into an email here from Hannah. Hi, Craig. I'm a big fan. Thank you for all that you do. I listen to your podcast lots and also a couple of others. I thought I'd email to ask you if you'd consider talking about the relationship between ADHD and problem drinking. ADHD affects 5% of the population, although granted it is a spectrum, and 40% of those who have a problem with alcohol are thought to have ADHD. I thought as these were such huge numbers and affect such a large portion of people would be super interesting subject for your podcast. Myself and my son are both diagnosed with ADHD, and we find regulating our diet extremely difficult, and I've struggled with alcohol for 2 decades. Thanks again. We'll keep listening. Take care, Hannah. All right. Good question. Look, so honesty session. I'm not an expert in mental health. I'm not an expert in ADHD. So I can't speak with a lot of authority in that, but what I will say to you, it makes perfect sense that people with ADHD would develop a problem with alcohol. What I have seen is I've seen a lot of research and testimonials and videos from people who've been, suffering with ADHD all of their lives up until their 40s and 50s. And, it just wasn't something that was easily diagnosed a while ago. And so you see these people in their, middle age getting an ADHD diagnosis, and they get given some medication and they burst into tears. They burst into tears when they take it. It's not that the drug is causing any sort of euphoria. Apparently what they're experiencing for the first time in their life is a sensation of peace. The noise of ADHD just comes down a bit, and the world just seems like a much quieter, more peaceful place. And you see these people who've battled all their life with this condition just burst into tears at the joy of nothing, the joy of silence. So, it makes perfect sense when you think about it. There must be so many people with ADHD who haven't got a diagnosis or, like you say, on the spectrum. And at some point in their life, they stumble across alcohol and they notice that the alcohol just quietens things down a bit, calms them down a little bit, because it is an anesthetic and it is a central nervous system depressant. And if you think about it, when you go to the doctor with a mental health problem like anxiety or depression or panic attacks or social phobias and things like that, what do they give you? They give you something to calm your central nervous system. They give you something to slow it down generally, and that will be an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety medication, or a benzodiazepine like Xanax or something like that. They give you that to calm your crazy thoughts down a bit. So it's not really a surprise that people who live with this constant noise in their head eventually put two and two together and find, when I drink alcohol, I feel a bit calmer. And then, alcohol's very devious. So once it kind of lynches on to that need within you, once it identifies that's your need for alcohol, then it will quickly get itself into a loop with you. 24 hours later, when you're feeling particularly agitated and your anxiety, your ADHD, your panic feels even stronger than it did the day before, that's because you've got the original problem plus the additional noise that alcohol has added to the mix to make you feel uncomfortable. And that's exactly how alcohol works. It makes you feel uncomfortable, promises you a solution, and then temporarily delivers that solution and then repeats. And you see how the loop begins here? So makes you feel uncomfortable, pops up, the evil clown pops up and says, hey, you don't need to feel like this. Do you want to feel better? Just have a drink. So you have a drink and you go, yeah, I do feel better. Thanks, alcohol. Then the next day, the same process begins. Alcohol hits you with a stick and promises you a carrot. And it keeps you in that loop until you die. That's what happens. So, somewhere along the line, people with ADHD develop a subconscious piece of programming that makes the use of alcohol automatic. Because what is happening is initially you are consciously choosing to drink. You're thinking about it. You go, well, I felt a little better. I think I'll have a drink. But if you do anything consciously often enough, the subconscious will go, okay, this is a recurring theme. This is something that he or she is going to use regularly. Let's create a program so he doesn't have to think about it anymore. Let's make it automatic. And there are things like this in your life already. You don't have to consciously beat your heart, do you? You don't have to consciously control your body temperature. You don't have to do many millions of things because there's a program to do it. That's why you can safely go to sleep at night and know you're not just going to stop living, because there are programs that don't require your input or activation. They're going to run in the background. Now, when you do something repeatedly, it passes from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. It becomes a physical piece of meat in your head. In fact, if we MRI'd your head at the age of 20, and then we MRI'd it again at the age of 40 after 2 decades of drinking, and we knew what we were looking for, we'd be able to identify a physical piece of meat in your head that is the alcohol program. And that's why, to people who don't understand problem drinking, and they think things like, well, just don't drink so much. Haven't you got any willpower? Are you just so weak-willed you can't get in control of this? They don't understand that trying to remove something physical from inside your brain where you can't access it is as difficult as trying to consciously stop your heart beating. You can't do it. You've got to slowly erode that incorrect program in your head. And that's what my course does. It slowly stops that programming running over and over again. And what we've discovered is that if you can stop it running, it gets a fraction of 1% weaker. So if you can stop it running long enough, it becomes weak, ineffective, and eventually it virtually disappears. And we know this is true from, the research that Ivan Pavlov did with his dogs. And you know the story. The social scientist, Ivan Pavlov, would ring a bell, feed the dogs, ring a bell, feed the dogs, ring a bell, feed the dogs. And eventually he would just have to ring the bell and he'd get the same response from the dogs as if food was there. They would salivate. They would act as though food should be available. And that's the story that everyone knows. But the extension of that experiment that most people don't know about is that Pavlov continued and he stopped ringing the bell for a couple of months. And then after a couple of months of not doing this, he rang the bell. And guess what happened? Nothing. The dogs did not respond as they had previously been conditioned to do so. So that tells us that these programs, if you don't activate them, they lose power and they fade and they become ineffective. So just to jump back to that email from Hannah, as I always say, Hannah, alcohol's never the problem. Alcohol is always a symptom of a problem. And it's kind of irrelevant what you're using alcohol to fix, whether it's anxiety, depression, ADHD, loneliness, being in a bad relationship. It doesn't matter what your underlying condition is. The way alcohol works is the same. It promises a solution. It gives you the illusion of a temporary benefit, and then it repeats the process over again. It's doing the same thing with ADHD. So it makes perfect sense to me that you're saying 40% of people who have a problem with alcohol are thought to have ADHD, because it fits perfectly. Anything that's going on in your head that's causing you discomfort, causing you, pain and suffering, alcohol has the power to perform an illusion to make it appear to be reduced. Of course, you'll pay a very heavy price for that temporary illusion, and ultimately you'll pay with your life. But thank you for raising it. I hope that helps explain a little bit. And if you are one of those people that is using alcohol to escape the noise going on in your head, then let me show you how to get out of that loop. That's the most important thing. And step one, go to the website, sign up for today's free Quit Drinking webinar, and you get a copy of my best-selling book, Alcohol Lied to Me, as a free gift just for turning up. Thanks so much. Don't forget, if you've got a question, just drop me an email, craig@craigbeck.com, and I'll do my best to make you a video too. Worried about your drinking? Reserve your place on today's free Quit Drinking webinar and get a copy of my best-selling book, Alcohol Lied to Me, as a gift just for turning up. www.stopdrinkingexpert.com